Hello and welcome back to One-on-One Shadowboxing. Have your say. I'm still at WTV Studios with Ivan Quail. I always told you you're Ivan Pigeon for me, because it's another bird, but that just was a bad joke. So, back to the tidal energy, Ivan.
Okay.
What we have in Australia, and particularly in Western Australia, regard to tidal energy. And what's the perspective? What can we do? Why and how? Because I heard lots of pros and contras from science about tidal energy.
Okay, well, first of all, according to that Australian Energy Resource Assessment put out by BRI and Geoscience Australia, they give a figure which I believe they got from NOAA in the US as to the estimated kinetic energy, that is the horizontal flow of the water along the Kimberley coast, and this amounts to an amount of energy which is 14 times more. I mean, if we could collect all of that energy and drive turbines, it would be 14 times more electricity than we currently generate in the whole of Australia. That's
much more than what we need ever.
Exactly, much more than what we need.
So why don't we just sitting there in the Kimberley and try to generate that flow of energy from the horizontal movement of the water?
Well, yeah, because underwater horizontal turbines and vertical axis turbines are still fairly experimental. There are a few of them around the world that have been running for a couple of years. At the moment, they last for about 25 years. So, you know, you're going to be constantly replacing them. To maintain them is quite expensive because you have to lift them up from the bottom of the ocean again. But there is a more recent development in what they call a tidal fence, which is developed by Blue Energy in Canada.
So what is the tidal fence?
You build like a wall between, say, an island and the shore, or between two islands where the tide rushes through, and you have vertical axis turbines creating a fence and so the water has to flow through and turn a generator which is mounted above the water level. Now that is a more economical way of capturing tidal kinetic energy or horizontal flow energy. Again, it's also fairly new and experimental, and I guess for big money investors, they are saying, yeah, we want something that's tried and tested. Well, tidal energy that is tried and tested is tidal range energy, which makes use of the difference in height of the water.
Of the sea level changes the height, yes?
Exactly. So the tides in the Kimberley go up to 13.3 meters in places.
Pretty nice.
Yeah. According to the CSIRO's publication 2015-2050, they say it only goes to 9.2 meters. But you only have to look at the Bureau of Meteorology tide tables to find
which says it's almost 14 meters.
In fact,
yes,
somebody up in the Kimberleys says, yes, 13.3 meters, but that you must also realize that it goes down to minus 8.8 of a meter.
So it's almost 20 meters, or more than 20 meters.
No, minus 0.8 of a meter. Yes. So 13.3 plus 0.8 is 14.1 meters is the tidal difference. So
easy.
That's those are very big tides, and there are a lot of places in the Kimberley.
So how can we harvest that moving level energy?
Well, you can harvest it firstly by building a tidal barrage, which is a wall across and holding the water back until you've got a 2 or 3 meter head.
So
and
like
then
a dam?
You let it through.
Like a dam?
Yes.
Yes.
Let the water through the turbines, and that drives the generators. So that was done.
So that technology is tested and tried all over the world, and we got our Snowy River one, and we got a much older than in Tasmania. So we got the dams, and we know hydro energy is working, it's tested, and it's cheap, and it's really good.
Exactly so. And the Snowy Mountain scheme.
Yeah, that's all happened in the Australian history twice, big time, with the full support of some of the premiers and prime ministers those times.
Correct.
Not today.
Just so. And of course, Laurent's tidal power station was built in 1966, which is 50 years ago.
In
France.
In France, yes.
And today it generates the cheapest electricity in the whole of Europe.
And that's not enough red flag in the face of Malcolm Turnbull to say, oh, we got the big chance, the cheapest energy in the world. Why don't we do it?
Exactly.
Because we need money. However, we need money for submarines. $55 billion wasting on submarines.
That's right.
But not on something which creates our future.
That's right.
But submarines.
Electricity.
Okay, so that's Innovation Nation for us.
Yes.
That's good. Next step. So if in the Kimberley, which parts is possible to build these dams, which are just similar as dams, but they tidal energy generators? Okay, what's the official name for those?
Well, it's tidal range energy.
The name for that sort of dam, which is
barrage.
Barrage.
It's called a barrage, yes.
Okay,
well,
sorry.
Yeah, that's one method of harnessing it. You can also have tidal lagoons,
yes,
which instead of blocking an estuary or an existing bay or inlet, you can say, well, here the water is shallow, I will build my own wall from the shore out into the ocean and back again, and let the water in and let the water out when the tide goes down, and vice versa.
Like in Broome or anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, this is it. That's the other issue. You know, the tide comes in and the tide goes out, and then it turns around, and for 3/4 of an hour nothing's happening at the top and the bottom. So people say, well, where are you going to get the electricity from? Well, from between Darwin and Broome, according to our man-made time, there's a 1.5 hour time difference. But according to the tides, it's a 4-hour time difference.
Okay. Yes. And
so it means that along that coastline from Darwin to Broome, you can always be generating electricity.
It's always going on. There's no pause whatsoever.
Exactly. Somewhere there's always power being generated. So that's the way to overcome that.
That's continuous.
Yeah.
So what are the costs and how many barrages or lagoon walls you need to generate that 14 times more energy what Australia generates now in any times?
Okay, the 14 times more is related to the tidal kinetic energy, the horizontal flow.
Yes.
I'm talking about tidal barrages, which is tidal range energy. It's now called tidal range because it uses the difference in height.
So what is that could generate for Australia?
That could generate 3 times more electricity than we currently generate in the whole of Australia.
Yes.
If you look at the existing bays and inlets, and then you add on to that tidal lagoons, which could be built. I haven't done any estimates on tidal reefs, which is another way of harnessing tidal range energy. The Kimberleys, of course, is pretty remote. It's a long way from Sydney, Melbourne, Perth.
So how the energy comes from the Kimberley back to Perth or Melbourne? That's the big question.
Ultra-high voltage DC bulk transmission lines.
I never heard that one.
Okay.
Until you brought my attention to that.
Yeah.
Explain to me and explain to the audience why this energy transportation is new, first of all, and why it's useful for long distance transformation of energy with very minimal loss.
HVDC has been around for nearly 100 years.
Yes. So why the people don't know about it? Because in this country it's not been used.
Yes, it has. It has. Yeah, I mean, well, Basslink from Tasmania to Victoria is
that
HVDC.
Was the first one, yes.
Yeah? And that's undersea, and at the moment
so
it's broken down.
So why is new then? Why are you saying it's a new way of transportation?
Well, because the transmission losses are a lot less, and it's very good for transmitting bulk power from A to B. Okay, you've got converter stations at each end. It doesn't matter whether the distance between is 180 kilometers or 2,800 kilometers, you still have a converter station at each end, and the cost of those converter stations is the same. So you get the current up to 800,000 volts, and you've got 3.5% transmission loss per 1,000 kilometers.
That sounds wonderful.
It's very good.
It's not what we're using definitely today.
Yeah, if you do what has recently been done in China, is you go to 1 million volts. HVDC bulk transmission, and they're transmitting that over 3,000 kilometers, and the transmission loss comes down to 2.4%.
That's incredible.
Per 1,000 kilometers.
That's incredible.
It's very low, very low.
It's very low. It's negligible, as you say.
Exactly.
As you say.
Exactly. Just so.
So, but the number of poles between the 2,800 Ks is the same number of poles what we need for the other way of transmitting energy.
Yeah, you can either go overhead transmission.
Overhead, yes, or underground.
Or you can go underground transmission. My view is that we need to, the route that the power lines is going to take from the Kimberley, or from Derby to Perth, or from Derby to Melbourne or Sydney, needs, of course, to be planned. And if you're going over hard rock
formations, yes,
then you'd go overhead power lines. If you're going through sandy desert, you might
just dig in and that's it.
You might find it easier to dig a trench and put the cables in and forget about them for the next 50, 60, 70, 80 years. So, but it's all dollars and cents again.
But it's dollars and cents again. But if we're doing these economical solution of the energy supply for our nation,
yes,
then what the politicians can do? They couldn't use the excuse, oh, energy prices have to go up in the next 5 years again and again. Sorry, energy prices have to go up and again and again. So they're losing the weapon against the people sitting at home. And they couldn't frighten them with energy prices. So
right.
they're losing their weapon. They don't want to have that, do they?
Well, not only that, but I mean, when you talk about money and finance, I think there would be a lot of older people who, in their will, would be planning on leaving something for their grandchildren. So, okay, you can invest money in HVDC power lines or tidal power projects, knowing that in 40 years' time, all the capital with interest has been repaid, and now you're getting really good profits from it. That can go to the grandchildren. So, good way to go.
Lots of way to go, I have to say that.
Because in 40 years' time, once these projects are paid for, it really will be the cheapest electricity on the planet. Because
that's bad news for people who want to make only profit, and more profit. Ivan, thank you very much for your visit.
Thank you very much for having me, Tidal.
And you're marvelous, Maverick. So we got a nice discussion on the tidal energy and the future and why the Australian politicians maybe don't want to have that. Next week, same time, same channel. Have your say. One-on-one shadow boxing.